Okay, so this is part 2 of the problem-solving lesson. Let's look at number 9 on this handout. All right, so you're told that a 25-inch piece of steel is cut into 3 pieces, so that the second piece is twice as long as the first piece, and the third piece is 1 inch more than 5 times the length of the first piece. And you want to find the length of the pieces. So remember, sometimes it helps if you draw a diagram. Normally, though, see how this diagram was given and there was some information here? It's not going to be given like this on a test or a final or a worksheet. So you need to be able to read the problem and then draw the diagram as you see it. So you have this piece of steel, and you're told it's cut into 3 pieces. So I'm just going to cut this thing in 3 pieces. Okay, so again, if you have to read the problem again, you read the problem again. So you're told that this steel is 25 inches long. So what that means is that from here to here, it's 25 inches. And it's cut into 3 pieces, and again, if you read it, it says this. The second piece is twice as long as the first. All right, so you have this first piece here. So the second piece is twice as long as the first, and the third piece is 1 inch more than 5 times the length of the first. So if you look at those 2 sentences right here, or that sentence, the word first piece shows up twice. So what we're going to do is we're going to let x equal the length of the first piece. All right, so I'm going to call this the first piece right here. And so the second piece, if you read it again, the second piece is twice as long as the first piece. So if the first piece is x inches long, then the second piece is 2 times x, as it says twice as long, so 2 times x. So let's say this is the second piece right here. And then the third piece is 1 inch more than, okay, so remember more than means plus, 5 times the length of the first piece. So it'll be 1 plus 5, and then the first piece is represented as x, so 1 plus 5x, or 5x plus 1 does not matter. Okay, so addition is commutative. 1 plus 5x is the same thing as 5x plus 1. Okay, so now on the worksheet or a test, sometimes it will say this. It'll say represent the unknowns. So let's make sure you understand what to put. Represent the unknowns. And there are 3 pieces. So let's call them first piece, second piece, and third piece. Okay, so that's what you're trying to find. You're trying to find 3 pieces. All right, so we just let x be the first piece. So that's just going to put in those boxes or blanks, whatever appears there. The second piece, remember, was twice as long as the first piece. And the third piece, remember, was 1 inch more than 5 times the length of the first piece. Okay, so there's your unknowns. All right, now we're going to set up the equation. Okay, once you have the unknowns, assuming these are correct, once you have the unknowns, the rest is fairly easy. This is the part that gets students. So once you got this, then the rest is easy. Because look, all you're going to do now is know the fact that these 3 pieces, see how long this thing is? These 3 pieces, when added together, has to equal 25. So that means that x, the first piece, plus the second piece, plus the third piece, has to equal 25. So there's your equation. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to solve this equation. And solve the equation. So then I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this. And then I'm going to combine like terms. So x plus 2x plus 5x is 8x. So 8x plus 1 equal 25. Subtract 1 from both sides. Combine like terms. I get 8x equal 24. Divide both sides by 8. I get x to be 3. All right. So that's what x is. So x is 3. So let's remember what x is. Okay, so x represents the length of the first piece. So that right here, you can go right here now and say this. The length of the first piece is 3 inches. The length of the second piece is 3 times 2, which is 6 inches. And the length of the third piece is 1 plus 5 times 3. So that's 1 plus 15, which is 16 inches. And so your sentence, you're going to say the length of the three pieces are, and just say 3 inches, 6 inches, and 16 inches. Okay? All right, so that was number 9 on this sheet. That was number 9. Okay, so then let's look at number 11. All right, number 11. So number 11 says this. A 40-inch board is cut into 3 pieces so that the second piece is twice as long as the first piece, and the third piece is 5 times as long as the first piece. Okay, and here they tell you to let x represent the length of the first piece, but that's not going to happen. All right, so you're not going to be told that, and you just be told find the length of all 3 pieces. Okay, so what you have to remember, just like we just did, was notice that in both cases, the second piece and the third piece are both represented in terms of the first piece. So you're going to let x be the length of the first piece. So when we do number 11, it's going to be same idea as number 9. Same idea as number 9. So you have this board cut into 3 pieces, and so you're going to let x represent the length of the first piece, and then you're told that the second piece is twice as long as the first piece. So that's just 2x. And then you're told that the third piece is 5 times as long as the first piece. So that'll be 5x. And you're told that the 3 pieces added together is 40 inches. Okay? All right, so let's talk about representing the unknowns. So you're trying to find the length of all 3 pieces. All right, so we're going to call this first piece, again, just like number 9, second piece, and then third piece. All right, and so if you, again, we let x be the first piece, and the second piece, remember, was 2x, and the third piece was 5x. All right, so once you get this, the rest is easy. It's just setting up the equation using the fact that those 3 pieces added together has to equal 40 inches. So you're going to say x plus 2x plus 5x has to equal 40. And so then we're going to solve the equation. All right, so let's just go ahead and rewrite this over. So you get x plus 2x plus 5x equal 40. So when I combine these like terms, that's 8x equal 40. Divide both sides by 8, I get x to be 5. All right, now what that represents is this. So I can go here where I represent the unknowns, and then I can determine what my 3 pieces are. And I would take that information and write as a sentence. So my first piece is x, which is 5, so that's 5 inches. My second piece is 2 times 5, which is 10 inches. And my third piece is 5 times 5, which is 25 inches. And so your sentence, you'd say the length of the 3 pieces are, and then you just write 5 inches, 10 inches, 25 inches. Okay? All right, so let's look at number 13. So 13 says this. In 2012, New York produced 226 million pounds more apples than Pennsylvania. Together, the 2 states produced 1,214 million pounds of apples. And so you want to find the amount of apples grown in New York and Pennsylvania. Okay, so let's look at 13. Okay, so again, read the problem again. So it says New York produced 226 more pounds of apples than Pennsylvania. Okay, so together, that means that when you add the number of apples that New York produced and the number of apples that Pennsylvania produced, they produced 1,214 million pounds together. And so you want to find out how much did each produce. Okay, so you got to let x represent something here. All right, so let's think about this. So you're told that New York produced, so the amount of apples that New York has is equal to, so New York equals 226 million pounds more apples. So that's 226 plus whatever Pennsylvania produced. So what you would do is let x be the number of apples that Pennsylvania produced. So that will be one of your unknowns. Well, that will be your unknown. So you'd say this. You'd say, okay, represent the unknowns. All right, so you have Pennsylvania. All right, so we're talking about the number of apples. Pennsylvania, so that'll be X, and then the number of apples for New York, and that's where it says New York produced 226 million more pounds. So you're going to say X plus 226, and remember that's going to be in millions. Okay? So my units are millions here, so don't forget the units are millions. I'm just going to go ahead and write it as 226. Okay, so now you're told this though. You're told that so we represent the unknowns. We're going to set up the equation. Okay, so I'm going to use the fact that when I add the number of apples that Pennsylvania produced and the number of apples that New York produced, that's going to equal, and you're told that together they produced 1,214 million. So it'll be 1,214. Okay, don't forget the units are millions though. All right, so then we're going to solve the equation. I'm going to combine like terms, so that's 2x plus 226 equal 1214. Subtract 226 from both sides. So when I subtract 226 and combine like terms, I'm going to get, let's see, 1214 minus 226, so that's 988. So 2x equals 988. Divide both sides by 2. I get x to equal 494. Okay, so that's what x is. So let's remember what that is. Let's go back where we represented these unknowns. So the number of apples that Pennsylvania produces x, so that is 494 million apples. And then the number of apples that New York produced is 494 plus 226. And that's going to be, let's see, that's 10, 12, 720? So 720 million apples. Okay? And so then your sentence, you're going to say this. You're going to say something like, New York produced 720 million apples, and Pennsylvania produced 494 million apples. Okay? All right, so that's number 13. Okay, so let's look at another one. So this is going to be number 19. Number 19. All right, number 19 says this. All right, the flag of Equatorial Guinea contains an isosceles triangle. So there's the flag, and they're talking about this little triangle right here. And it's an isosceles triangle, and you're told that an isosceles triangle contains two angles with the same measure. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just draw that diagram. So we have this isosceles triangle, and you're told that two of these angles, it doesn't matter which two of these angles have the same measure. I'm going to just use these two right here as the angles with the same measure. So it says this, if the measure of the third angle, so let's say this is my third one right here, if the measure of the third angle is 30 degrees more than twice the measure of either of the two other angles, find the measure of the angle of a triangle. Okay? So, let's read this again. Now to give you this hint, I'm going to just remind you that all it's saying here is that the sum of the measures of a triangle is 180. So when you add up the three angles of a triangle, you add up to be 180. So that's going to help you with the equation, setting up the equation. So because remember, this angle plus this angle plus this angle has to equal 180 degrees. All right. So let's read that sentence again right here. So the measure of the third angle, so this angle right here, the measure of the third angle is 30 degrees more, this right here, let's go ahead and write it, 30 degrees more than, so 30 degrees plus twice the measure of either of the other angles. So we don't know what these are, so let's call that x. All right, now they're both x because remember, an isosceles triangle, the two angles have the same measure. So this is x, then this has to be x. So if this is 50 degrees, this has to be 50. If this is 30 degrees, this has to be 30. Okay? All right, so you're told that this angle here is 30 degrees more than twice the measure of either of these angles. So these are both x, so twice one of them is 2x. All right, so that's how we represent this. So let's go ahead and represent the unknowns. So here's how you're going to write this. So let's call this first angle, second angle, third angle. Okay, so first angle. And when we say first angle, we're meaning the measure of the first angle. Let's call that x. The measure of the second angle is also x. And so the measure of the third angle we're going to call this, remember, is 30 plus 2x, or 2x plus 30, does not matter. All right, so now we're going to set up the equation. We're going to set up the equation using the fact that those three angles added together has to equal 180 degrees. All right, so we're going to say x plus 2x plus 30 has to equal 180. All right, so then we're going to solve the equation. So when I solve the equation, I'm going to combine like terms. So that's 3, so that's 4x plus 30 equals 180. Subtracting 30 from both sides, I get 4x, that's 0 here, so I get 4x equal 150. Divide both sides by 4. I get x to be 150 divided by 4 is 37.5 degrees. Okay? All right, so let's see what that means. So this remember, is x, so x is 37.5 degrees. So that means that the measure of the first angle and the measure of the second angle are both the same, and they're both 37.5 degrees. All right, and the measure of the third angle, this angle here, let's just use this expression, so it'll be 2 times 37.5 plus 30. So 2 times 37.5, so that's 75 right here. And 75 plus 30 is 105. It kind of makes sense because when you add these three angles, it better add up to be 180 degrees. Okay? So then your sentence, you're going to say this. So the interpretation, you're going to say the measure of the three angles are and so you're going to say 37.5 degrees, 37.5 degrees, and 105 degrees. Okay. All right, so that was number 9. Okay, so number 19 rather. So let's look at 21. Okay, so 21, you're told that the sum of the measures of the angles of a parallelogram is 360. So remember, a triangle, when you add up the angles of a triangle, the three angles of a triangle, they have to be 180 degrees. In a parallelogram or a quadrilateral, there are 4 angles. And so when you add up those 4 angles, remember, you don't get 180, you get 360 degrees. Okay, so knowing that we have to use the fact at some point that those 4 angles have to add up to be 360 degrees. Okay, so in the parallelogram below, now we're talking about a parallelogram here. So in a parallelogram, remember, opposite angles are congruent. So notice they say this, in the parallelogram below, angles A and B have the same measure as well as C and B. Okay, so that's one of the properties of a parallelogram. Opposite angles are congruent. So you see how they have that this measures x, then you have to use the fact that this is x as well. So let me go ahead and draw this. This is going to be number 21. So a couple of things you have to remember about parallelograms from a previous course. So you have this parallelogram, so I'm going to go ahead and draw it. And remember, in a parallelogram, opposite sides are parallel, okay? But there are some other properties that you learned about in a previous course. So one of the properties you learned is that opposite angles are congruent. They have the same measure. So this is, they're letting this be x right here. So this is x, and that means this is x. Okay? So opposite angles have the same measure. Okay, now here's what you're told. Okay, so in parallelogram below, angle D and angle A have the same measure. So that's why you see x right here as well. And if the measure of angle C is twice the measure of angle A, find the measure of each angle. All right, so you're told the measure of angle C is twice the measure of angle A. Well, angle A is x, so that means that angle C is 2x. All right, well, if this is 2x, then this right here has to also be 2x because opposite angles are congruent. They have the same measure. Opposite angles have the same measure of a parallelogram. Okay? All right, so make sure you go back through this video and understand this again. Opposite angles of a parallelogram. This is only true if it's a parallelogram. It's not true for any quadrilateral, any four-sided figure. Only if it's a parallelogram. Opposite angles are congruent. So this is x, this is x. You're told that angle C is twice the angle of angle A. So if A is x, then this is 2x. And so this has to be 2x as well because they're opposite angles. And opposite angles have the same measure. Okay? All right. So let's talk about represent the unknowns. So let's represent the unknowns. All right, so you're trying to find the measure of each angle. So let's just say this: the measure of angle A. Remember the symbol for angle is this symbol right here. The measure of angle B. The measure of angle C, and the measure of angle D. Okay? All right, so the measure of angle A is x, the measure of angle D is x, the measure of angle B is 2x, and the measure of angle C is 2x. All right, so that's how you represent that. Now let's set up the equation. So we're going to set up the equation using the fact that those four angles, when added together, has to equal 360 degrees. Okay, so your equation would be x plus 2x plus 2x plus x equal 360. All right, now let's solve the equation. Combine like terms. Let's see, that's 2, 4, 6. So that's 6x equal 360. Divide both sides by 6. I get x to be 60. Okay? All right, so what that represents is this, that the measure of angle A is 60. The measure of angle B is 2 times 60. That's 120 degrees. The measure of angle C is also 120 degrees. And the measure of angle D is 60 degrees as well. Okay? All right, so once you have this written, you can always come back and indicate what each of those measures are, and then you have your sentence. So your sentence, you're going to say the measure of the four angles are so 60 degrees, 120 degrees, and doesn't have to be in that order. 120 degrees and then 60 degrees. So you can say 60, 60, 120, 120. It does not matter. Just tell me what those four angles measure. Okay, so that's 21. All right, let's see. Let's look at 39. 39. Okay, so in 39, you're told that two angles are supplementary if their sum is 180 degrees. All right, and the larger of the actually, we're gonna let's do this one in the next lesson because it's gonna be for that other worksheet. So I'm gonna come back and do 39 in the next lesson. What I want to do now, though, is this. So let's look at this right here. Okay, so the second angle of a triangle measures 3 times as large as the first, and if the third angle measures 20 degrees more than the first, find the measure of all three angles. All right, so the second measure of a triangle measures 3 times as large as the first, and the third angle is 20 degrees more than the first, and you'll find the measure of all the three angles. All right, so this is going to be number 1 on the part that says other examples. So I'm going to put this right here, other examples. Okay, so you're talking about a triangle, so let's just draw a triangle. And then we're going to talk about representing the unknowns. Okay, and there are 3 angles, so let's call them first angle, second angle, and then third angle. All right, so first angle, second angle, third angle. All right, so you're told that the second angle is 3 times as large as the first. Okay, so that means the second, if this is my second right here, then that's 3 times the first. So I don't know what the first is, so let's just call that x. Okay, so we're going to call this my first angle x. So this is x. If that's my first, then this is 3x. Okay, and then it says this, the third angle is 20 degrees more than the first. So you see, notice in both of those, you have the word first. So we'll let x be the first. So that's going to be 20 plus x. So the third angle is 20 plus x, or x plus 20. It does not matter. All right, so you represent the unknowns. Now remember, we're going to use the fact that those 3 angles, see, those are the measures of these angles, x, 3x, and x plus 20. So those 3 angles added together has to equal 180. So that's how you're going to set up the equation. So you can say x plus 3x plus x plus 20 has to equal 180. All right, so then we're going to solve. So you're going to combine like terms. So that's 3, 4, so that's 5x plus 20 equal 180. Then you're going to subtract 20 from both sides. Then combine like terms. I get 5x equal 160. Then divide both sides by 5. I get x to be 160 divided by 5 is 32. So 32 degrees. All right, so now once you find that x, let's go back here and then indicate what each of those angles are. So here's your 32, so that's x. So this is 3 times 32, so that's going to be, what, 96 degrees? And then this is 20 plus 32, so that's 52 degrees. Okay? And so just make sure that they all add up to be 180. You could have easily made a mistake in your computation, so just make sure 32 plus 96 plus 52 equals 180. And so your sentence, you're going to say this. You're going to say the measure of the 3 angles are, the measures of the 3 angles are, and then you're just going to say 32 degrees, 96 degrees, and then 52 degrees. Just make sure, again, you use the symbol for degrees, though. Don't just say 32, 96, 52. You do have to say the units, so then the units are degrees. So make sure you put the symbol for degrees. Okay, and then the other example, number two, says this. Okay, so we're just talking about a triangle again. So it says the measure of the third angle is 20 degrees more than 3 times the measure of the first angle, and the measure of the second angle is 45 degrees less than twice the measure of the first angle. So again, you'll see the word first angle listed twice again. So we're going to let x be the measure of the first angle. But in particular, remember the phrase less than, which you have to do in that case. Okay, so that's going to be important as well. Okay, less than. All right, so we're going to so we have this triangle. And let's go ahead and represent the unknowns. All right, so they refer in the problem, they refer to them as first angle, second angle, third angle. So let's go ahead and do the same thing. So first angle, when I say first angle, I mean the measure of the first angle. And then measure the second angle. And remember, that's a symbol for second angle right here. That's a symbol for angle. And the measure of the third angle. All right, so we're going to let x be the measure of the first angle. And so the second angle says 20 degrees more than 3 times the measure of the first angle. So it'll be 20 plus 3x. Okay, 20 degrees more than 3 times the measure of the first angle. So this is x. This is 3x plus 20. And then the third angle says this now. Oops, sorry, that was the third angle. So let's put that here. Okay, and then the second angle, it says this. It's 40 degrees less than twice the measure of the first angle. So remember how we write that. You got to, the order changes when you see the phrase less than. So it's not 45 minus 2x. Okay, so it's not 45 minus 2x. That's incorrect. So it's 2x minus 45. So this is 2x minus 45. Oops, minus 45. Okay? All right, so now we're going to set the equation. So that's 2x minus 45. So we're going to set the equation using the fact that these three angles have to add up to be 180. So x plus 2x minus 45 plus 3x plus 20 has to equal 180 degrees. All right, combine like terms. That's going to be 6x minus 25 equals 180. Then adding 25 to both sides, combining like terms, I get 180 plus 25 is 205. And let's see. And divide both sides by 6. I get, all right, so I get this weird number. Let's just see how I get this decimal here. This decimal. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult to find the measure of each of those angles. So let's just leave them as a fraction, a mixed number. So let's change this back to mixed number. So you get second PRB. So you get 34 and 1/6. So 34 and 1/6. 34 and 1/6 degrees. So that's a measure of x. All right. So this is this right here. So 34 and 1/6 degrees. All right. Over here, you're going to say 2 times that. So do this. Here's what I would do for this. All right. So I do, since that's a decimal. Remember, this decimal, if you recall, 205 divided by 6. See, that decimal doesn't terminate. So the way I want you to do this is this. So you're gonna write it as a mixed number. All right. So then you're gonna say this. You're gonna say 2 times this right here. So you have your decimal. So say times 2. Okay. And you get this. Then you can subtract 45. All right. And then you're going to change that to a mixed number. So second PRB equal, and then so that's 23 and 1/3. So that's 23 and 1/3 degrees. And over here, do the same thing. So you can go back and you put this as a decimal. So that's your x. You can say 205 divided by 6. All right, so that's x. So you can say 3 times x. So you can say this times 3 equal, and then you can say plus 20. And so you get this. Now that one's easy to figure out. Since that's 0.5, 5/10, 122 and 5/10, so that's just 122 and a half. Okay? All right. So those are your measures. So the one in your worksheet or test is going to be a nice integer. It's going to be an integer. So I didn't realize this was going to be a mixed number. But notice how we did these right here. All right, so go back over that video. So then your sentence, you're going to say this. You're going to say the measure of the three angles are, and you're going to say 34 and 1/6 degrees, 23 and 1/3 degrees, and then 122 and a half degrees. Okay? All right. Okay, so that's going to take care of this part 2 of the lesson dealing with problem solving.